Hey, welcome back to another video. My name is Kara Michelle and I am here to help you live your truth. And today we are back on A Course in Miracles. We are still on chapter 2, but now we are on part 7, lesson 14. So let's get into this. This is a really good one. So this is all about cause and effect, which if you've studied any of the universal laws, cause and effect is one of them, right? There's always, I'll probably butcher this really badly, but it's very similar to gravity and to karma. Like what goes up must come down. What you put out must come back to you. Whatever you do is going to create an effect. So the cause and effect go together. So anyway, enough of that ramble. Let's just go into cause and effect. So it's really interesting because it talks about how even though you might be complaining about fear, you are still choosing to make yourself fearful. And you are still continuing to believe in fear, even though God is asking you not to. And this book exactly is telling you to choose to see things differently. So instead of giving your power and your focus to the fear, choose to see it differently. Realize that you are in fact creating so much more fear than you need to with your pattern thinking. And we are so programmed in this world. Like, it's mind-blowing. It's honestly absolutely crazy to realize how much our beliefs just depend on what we see and perceive and what we continue to give power to. If you grew up with some struggles, we've all had struggles, but if you grew up with something really heavy and it created a belief, that is something that you're carrying every day, and you're most likely going to be continuing to see the patterns, to perceive the world from that view, and continuing to give fear or energy to that negative belief. You are going to continue to create a reality from that place because that's what you're focusing on and that's what you're putting your energy into. And this whole part about cause and effect is talking about the fact that God gave us everything we need. And I use God in any term as usual. The universe, source, whatever you believe in, gave us every single thing we need. We were made absolutely perfectly. And if you think about it, it's so true. Not only were we put on this planet where we were given ample oxygen that our bodies depend on, we had water, there were foods, we grew up with we're on this floating planet in the middle of nowhere that people don't seem to realize or think about, and yet we're alive. And our bodies know how to naturally heal themselves. They regulate and stay in homeostasis to keep us alive. They know exactly what they need to do to heal a cut or to overcome an illness or to repair an injury. Our bodies are miracles themselves. So A Course in Miracles is literally about realizing we already are the miracle and we already are living in this miracle, but we're usually not choosing to see it. And instead we're choosing to see the negativity. We're seeing the criticism and the judgment and what we wish would be better about our bodies. We're focusing on all the negatives and we're not always taking care of ourselves in the best way possible. So this is saying that it's so much more helpful for God or universe to remind you that you need to start guarding your thoughts better and using them better than to actually shift them. Like, God and universe cannot do the work for us because that takes away our own power. If someone were to walk up to you today and say, hey, let me just give you all this money. Yeah, that's great. And we'd be super excited. But most likely, you're not necessarily going to appreciate it as much because you haven't earned it. You're not going to actually handle it the best way possible because you haven't become educated in handling such a large amount of money. You're not going to know how to manage yourself or manage the people around you who are coming towards you. Whereas if you actually earned that money and you worked towards something and received it, there's this different appreciation. It's coming from within. You believe in yourself and your ability to create. You believe in yourself and your ability to continue to make more of that. Whereas if you're just handed this big check, yeah, it's awesome and you'd celebrate and stuff, but you're not going to have any more confidence or belief in yourself to actually amplify it or have that happen again. You're going to think it's luck. You're not going to have the belief. So if God just magically shifted all of our perspectives for us, we still wouldn't believe in our own power, because we'd still be relying on his power or the higher up's power. And the whole premise here is to realize that we can do it ourselves because God gave us that power. So it's kind of like a catch-22. We can pray and ask for God to do this for us and shift everything and change our life, or we can realize that God made us. We are a part of God. We are the universe in human form. We can do it ourselves because we have that ability, as long as we choose to believe it and we focus in on the love instead of the fear. So it's really about tuning into yourself, taking accountability, taking action, and realizing that everything you need is within you. You just got to do it. So this says, I cannot let you leave your mind unguarded, or you will not be able to help me. And miracle working entails a full realization of the power of thought in order to avoid miscreation. And so it's really about realizing that both miracles and fear come from thoughts. If you are not free to choose one, you would not be free to choose the other. And right now it's about realizing how you can choose the miracle over the fear. And every single moment you have the opportunity to choose love over fear, and miracle over fear, and greatness over lack, and not enoughness. So this weekend, it felt like a weekend, but this week I had a lot of resistance from my old self and some of my old limiting beliefs, and my new self and who I'm really becoming and what it is I dream of doing. And I realized there was still some fear around the changes I was making and what I was leaving behind in order to step into the next chapter of my life, my business, my relationships, all these different things. And I was choosing to give the fear some power for a little bit. And my mind was just clinging to it and really getting into this like spiral of like, well, what's going on? And asking all these questions and doubting myself or telling myself I wasn't good enough. And because of the work I've done, I had this awareness around it, like, where is this coming from? And why is this getting so loud right now? And I realized it was because for a long time, especially most of my life growing up, I did give the power to the fear and to the doubt and the limiting beliefs and to the I'm not good enough, or I'm not ready yet, and I'm not anything special. And that's the fear talking. So when we shift out of that and we shift into the love, and we remember that we were made perfect, we were made with everything within us, we've just been told the story that we aren't. We've been fed these lies for years and years that we aren't enough. And so we doubt our own greatness. But who we are is incredibly perfect and capable of everything we want and more. And it's about catching that voice and changing that voice over to love, over to abundance, over to joy, over to trust and faith, to know that everything is possible and everything is always working out for us as long as we choose to see it that way. So this is saying here, you have been fearful of everyone and everything. You are afraid of God, of me, and of yourself. You've misperceived or miscreated us, and you believe in what you've made. And the fearful must miscreate because they misperceive creation. And so you're miscreating your views around the world and your abilities and yourself as a human being. And that's what these old thoughts are. That's what all these stories are. They're just miscreations. They're not true. They do not have to hold any power over you whatsoever, but we give them so much power. We believe everything our mind tells us and everything our limiting beliefs and our fear and our old stories tell us. We believe everything our parents or society or our friends or the bullies at school told us. we are believing those things, but that doesn't mean that they're actually true. So it's always, always, always about uncovering what is actually true and what is just the fear or the limitation talking. So this also goes on to say that mastering fear is obviously very difficult. So it's really about focusing on mastery through love. So focusing on just being love, always bringing yourself back to that place, to focusing on the good, the positive, and seeing things differently, and realizing that to believe in one is to deny the other. Fear is really nothing, and love is everything. Whenever light enters darkness, the darkness is abolished. And what you believe is true for you. So we all have perceptions, and whatever our personal perception is, that's what becomes our reality, which is why it can be very difficult to see eye to eye with people sometimes, because they have their own perception and beliefs around the world and everything, and we have our own perception and beliefs around the world. And so our beliefs are, that is true for me. What I believe is true for me. That is my reality, and that's what I see in the world. So the question is are you seeing a reality that's positive and that's uplifting and empowering you, or are you seeing a reality that's negative, limiting, fearful? So really, really focusing on, again, what you're giving your power to, how you're choosing to see the world. And it goes on about the importance of everyone doing this work to understand, to come together, to see differently. And readiness. I like this part. Readiness is only the prerequisite for accomplishment. The two should not be confused. So being ready it's not the full thing. It's getting you there. It's the first step. It's very helpful and it's worth being excited about. But as soon as the state of readiness occurs, there's usually some degree of desire to accomplish, but is by no means necessarily undivided. So readiness does not imply more than a potential for a change of mind. And then confidence cannot develop fully until mastery has been accomplished. So it takes practice. Readiness isn't enough, although again, it's a great start. It's what's going to get you on the way. So being ready, choosing to see things differently, continually showing up, practicing, questioning your thoughts, looking at your beliefs and what you're seeing in the world, and then showing up in that place, turning it to love, turning it into the positive, and going with that. So that was a long one, but it's a good one. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Let me know in the comments down below. Give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed this lesson or this part so far, give it a thumbs up. Let me know. And lesson 14. Okay, so lesson 14 says, God did not create a meaningless world. So realizing that what God did not create does not exist, and everything that does exist exists as He created it. So tying into the part that we just read, everything He created exists perfectly. The earth, the way we interact, the way we have oxygen, the way we our bodies work, all of these things were created perfectly. So God did not create anything imperfect, but the world you see has nothing to do with reality. It is of your own making, and it does not exist, because the world you see, it's all what your perception's telling you. It's not the truth. It's not what God truly created. It's not the abundant, limitless, expansive world we live in. So the exercises for today is to let go of the thoughts that you've written on the world and see the word of God in their place. See the brilliance, the light, all the good stuff. So this is going to be a little bit eye-opening, I think. So thinking of all the horrors in the world that cross your mind, name each one as it occurs to you, and then deny its reality, because God did not create it, and so it is not real. So for example, God did not create that war, and so it is not real. God did not create that airplane crash, and so it is not real. God did not create that disaster, whatever it is, and so it is not real. And it's meant to be as specific as possible. So you can also say, like, God did not create cancer, and so it is not real. And this is going to bring most likely a lot of resistance at first as well, but hopefully a lot of perspective for you, because we're so fear-based. So even with the cancer example, we're so focused on the fear around this thing, and then we look for cures outside of ourselves because Big Pharma tells us that we need to pop pills, or we need to do this, or we need to put money into these things, instead of realizing that God created us all perfectly, and the more we live just our true natural state, the healthier, the happier, the more positive, more abundant, all of these things come to us when we are just being our true selves, because that's what we were meant to do here. So the wars, did God create a war? No, it's power-hungry people. It's people who are angry. It's people who have traumas that weren't healed and they don't know how to handle things and they lash out. It's about money and greed and conquering. It's about force. God didn't create those things. So God didn't create the war. So really looking at things in a new way, going through these things that bring about fear in your life, like lack, scarcity, debt. That's a big one for so many people. But God did not create that. Money, that's a whole other industry that's here to keep us stuck and tied into a certain thing and limited and paying off loans and all these different things and owing the banks, and like that is not a corporation, but I can't think of the word for it. Like it's all these big things that are trying to control us, that are keeping us in fear and keeping us stuck. But God didn't create those. Those things came from the greed of humankind and the ego, the selfishness, and they keep us living in fear and under other people's control. So looking through things, and then you can end it with saying God did not create a meaningless world, so he did not create blah blah blah, and so it is not real. Taking the power away from these things that bring you intense fear and starting to look differently at what you truly are, what the world is like, and living from that space. So let me know in the comments down below if you have any thoughts about this lesson, what it looks like for you, and how this is, if this is bringing up any thoughts or perceptions for you. And as I said, if you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you on the next video.